The modern mainstream video games industry is a bit of a weird place. On one extreme, you have wealthy corporations and individuals who seem to have their richy rich mentalities and feel that their wealth and power justifies them sweeping all of their past horrible mistakes under the carpet. On the other side, you seem to have the chancers, the Del Boys from Only Fools and Horses, who are willing to try anything to make money, whether it's microtransactions or NFTs or some other wild idea. The sad thing is, there used to be a middle ground, and that was the space where a lot of the most original and creative ideas for games were being made, and that seems to have been relegated now to indie development. Hi, I'm Rob, and welcome to Gosu News. Now, we're going to start off with a story that broke in Axios in November of last year, when a lawsuit was filed against PlayStation for alleged gender discrimination. It was filed by a former IT security analyst at PlayStation who cited wrongful termination after speaking up about discrimination against females at PlayStation. Now, last month, Sony requested that the gender discrimination lawsuit be dismissed with an argument that the class action lawsuit doesn't provide enough facts and would put some women at PlayStation in conflict with themselves. Now, strangely enough, in response to that, and again, a story that broke in Axios, 8 more women have alleged sexism at PlayStation and intensified the lawsuit. The allegations include unwelcome advances, difficulties getting promoted, and a lack of attention to their work. A former employee told Axios that during a session when promotions were being considered, nearly 70 men were up for advancement, whereas only 4 women were in consideration. There are various allegations made by various women. I've only touched on a couple of them. I will link both Axios articles in the description below. What I will say is that Sony really need to take this seriously. Do not try and sweep this under the carpet because it's not going to work. People know that things have not gone right within your offices. And it's up to you now, as a corporation and as one of the leaders of the video games industry, to be transparent about things, to fire the people who need firing, to reprimand the people who need reprimanding, to fix your internal systems, and have more women be recognized for the work that they do. And not just more women, more diversity as well. The sad thing is that the video games industry has traditionally been a male-dominated industry, and not just any male, specifically white male. And that hasn't really changed over the years. Recently, the Association for UK Interactive Entertainment conducted a census trying to identify certain trends within the video games industry here in the UK. Now, even though the census only covered 3,600 people, it's a reasonable sample size and they can extrapolate from there. But the initial results are actually quite shocking. They found that the UK games industry is 90% white and 67% male, which suggests that not only are women in the minority, women of an ethnic background are in a severe minority. And that to me is really shocking because it suggests that one of the key problems within the video games industry when it comes to diversity and inclusion and more women being encouraged to become games developers and work in games themselves, it's a fundamental problem with education and video games not being suggested as a potential career path for young girls in schools, colleges, and universities. Why? Why is this not happening? Moving on to Dr. Disrespect and Midnight Society, the AAA game developer who he backs. They have put out a blog post explaining how their Day Zero community is going to benefit from the early access package for their new first-person shooter game. It's part of the Founders Pass NFT, which grants membership benefits plus a unique procedurally generated visor Cortex helmet design. The pass and the associated benefits can then be sold or traded to others down the line. According to the blog post by Midnight Society, as we focus on building the best new PvP multiplayer first-person shooter, we're looking to leverage the collective strength of our Day Zero community to go hands-on during crucial early development milestones of the project. This means building an infrastructure that allows the active participants of our community to experience environments, weapons and movement, and other core tenets of the gameplay at a stage when their feedback, input and guidance can be incorporated. Which is fine. But back in the day, they used to be called playtesting, and you used to get paid for it, rather than you having to pay for it. Just making a point there about how things have changed. Not only that, you're using NFTs, and you're saying that you're going to limit the number of NFTs and approval is going to be based on a detailed scoring system, which will apparently help Midnight Society identify their most dedicated long-term community members who are active members of the gaming community in various ways. Players, athletes, developers, content creators, yada yada yada. And apparently, Midnight Society are going to grant 10,000 potential applicants the right to purchase the pass using this points-based system. So, all well and good so far. They've basically ticked a lot of marketing boxes in my head, including only offering a limited amount of these NFTs to ensure that the demand remains high. Fine. I still do not trust NFTs. No matter how much you dress them up, NFTs will continue to be a scam to me, and I'm not the only person who thinks that. See, Gabe Newell has already commented on NFTs and the metaverse. We know that. Sid Meier has suggested getting rid of all of the faff, all of the microtransactions and various things like that, and just getting down to brass tacks, focus on the gameplay. VentureBeat recently interviewed Warren Spector, and one of the questions that they asked in that interview specifically was about Gabe Newell's comment on the metaverse and NFTs. His response was what you'd expect from somebody who's been in video games development for decades. And I quote, "Here's where I'm going to get into trouble. I'm literally going to have people giving me hell about what I'm about to say, but I really don't think I care. NFTs are ridiculous. I do not understand why anybody would want to climb on that bandwagon. Ownership of virtual goods that can be instantly reproduced in unlimited quantities. Who thinks that's a good idea? So NFTs, I have no interest." Now, he was a bit less harsh on the subject of the metaverse, but what I will do, I will link the entire VentureBeat interview in the description below. It's a really interesting interview, and I would recommend having a read of it. So, obviously, we have to talk about Elden Ring. Now, Elden Ring has sold 12 million copies, according to Bandai Namco. This is based on sales figures of the digital version and distribution figures of the physical version, and in a statement, the game's director and co-writer Hidetaka Miyazaki expressed his thanks to the players who had already purchased the game. It's astonishing to see just how many people have been playing Elden Ring. I'd like to extend our heartfelt thanks on behalf of the entire development team. Elden Ring is based on a mythological story written by George R.R. Martin. We hope players enjoy a high level of freedom when adventuring through its vast world, exploring its many secrets, and facing up to its many threats. Now, I'm going to put a slight little damper on this. 12 million, yes, it's a lot, but Elden Ring is still a niche game. I would not say Elden Ring was a mainstream game in, say, the way that The Witcher 3 or Assassin's Creed Valhalla was a mainstream game. And even though it sold 12 million, which is a lot, I will admit, it's still not going to appeal to your average casual gamer. As a case in point, I was watching a Final Fantasy streamer called Zeppler quite recently, and she commented about how she had only managed to play Elden Ring for about 20 minutes before she went back to look for an easy mode on the game. Because the game is one of those, like Dark Souls and Bloodborne and others like that is designed for a more hardcore gamer, not for the casual player. And yes, there is a vast open world for you to explore, there is a narrative for you to build, the game gives you a lot more agency than other hand-holdy games, but still, it's a niche game. It doesn't appeal to everyone. Speaking of agency, Bethesda have put out a new video blog about Starfield, their space epic RPG. The video is titled Made for Wanderers, and one of the things that they talk about is how they want to create a game that allows every player to create their own story. Kind of like No Man's Sky in a sense, maybe a bit more like Eve in a sense. And that to me is a wonderful thing, because one of my all-time favourite games of recent years is a little game, it's a niche title, it's called Outward, and it allowed you to be an adventure in a very, very, very well realized sense. You had all sorts of stuff to prepare before you went off into the wilderness, and you didn't need to have a set destination. You could just go and explore the wilderness and fight wild beasts in the wilderness and camp in the wilderness and things like that. It's a cracking experience. I would recommend it to anyone to give it a try, especially if you like games like Elden Ring and No Man's Sky. So what else has been happening recently? Well, Riot Games have invested heavily into Fortiche, who are the studio behind their hit Netflix miniseries Arcane, which is based on their League of Legends games. Apparently, even though the investment has been quite significant, Fortiche are going to remain an independent company for the moment, but Riot will be working heavily with them in the future because they have already announced Arcane Season 2. And finally, a couple of bits of weird Konami news. Now, Konami has updated its Silent Hill trademark in Japan, but not only Silent Hill, they've also updated their trademarks for Gradius, Frogger, The Water Margin, and Tokimeki Memorial. Now, I know that a large number of people who play video games probably don't know what the water margin is, but I know for definite that the majority of you are probably thinking, what the hell is Tokimeki Memorial? Well, just to clarify what it is, Tokimeki Memorial began in 1994 and is one of the longest running dating sim franchises in video games, with the most recent Tokimeki Memorial game coming out in 2021. So it's been an active video game franchise for 27 years. It's probably one of the most well-known dating sim franchises in Japan, and it's had 3 anime adaptations and a live-action movie adaptation, and all sorts of spin-offs as well. But that's not the only Konami news. See, Konami is holding a free indie games convention in Japan. It's called Indie Games Connect 2022, and it's going to take place on June 26th at the Konami Creative Center in Ginza, Tokyo. It's designed to help indie game developers get their work into the hands of as many peers and players as possible, and it's going to be a totally free event, so both exhibitors and visitors can attend free of charge. Now, I know a lot of people are still salty with Konami about what happened with Hideo Kojima. My own thoughts actually differ wildly from what the majority of people think, and I also believe that a lot of things were not told to us. There were a lot of things behind closed doors regarding that whole situation that we weren't privy to and may never be privy to. That's not to say I'm going to defend Konami on that either, because I don't think Konami acted in the appropriate ways, and there's a lot of rumour and supposition regarding the whole incident, which I'm not going to go into. What I will say is credit where credit is due. Konami are doing something really positive for indie developers in Japan with this event, and I think that is a really positive step for them to take. That's not to say that they haven't made mistakes. eFootball, let's not go there. And I'm not suggesting that they're going to go down the route of Devolver Digital and become an indie games publisher, because I think the fact that they've renewed all of those trademarks suggests otherwise. I don't think this is an event that Konami are doing out of the goodness of their own hearts. I think they will benefit in some way, but for now, I'm going to say well done, Konami, for supporting indie game developers, and I really hope other people step forward and support indie game developers as well, because right now, in these troubled times, full-price games are going to become a luxury. We're going to be turning to indie games in a big way because they are going to be the ones that we can afford. People have to understand times are going to be hard, and if you want to play games, you either have to play second-hand games or you have to play indie games, because you probably won't be able to afford £70 for a big AAA PS5 Xbox Series X game. So think about that. Okay, that's the end of the episode. Let us know what you think about all of the things that we've covered in the comments below. I'll be back on the next episode of Gossy News or on Impossible Mission, whichever comes first. Until then, thanks for watching.